now. Hello, and thank you all so much for joining us with the movement. We are a motivational organization here to educate minds, empower, nurture, and transform. We want to help you thrust into your purpose so that you can live your best life and win. So many of us get to that place where we seem stuck, but we want to help you get unstuck. We want to help you clear your mind, and we're about empowering and building, and we're so happy to have you join us. Annette?
Well, hello, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about the mindset of the milk and honey. We're excited tonight. We believe that something will be said or done to really inspire you, to give you an extra that push you need to go to the next level. Sometimes it just takes somebody to say, girl, you got this. Oh, guy, you got this. I hit you on the back, say, atta girl, atta boy. So we believe tonight is going to be the night that you will be encouraged, inspired, and ready to run on to see what the end is going to be.
Excellent.
Yes.
You went to believe I run on. You went all the way in.
You had frozen.
Huh?
You had frozen a second. I was like, oh, okay. But you're back. That's fine.
Oh, okay, hold on. Let me see if this is you. Oh, I think it was you. I was hearing some background noise. Okay, so I'm about to knock my computer down. Tonight's topic is very interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and pull us into the presentation. We're excited and we are ready. So tonight we're talking about milk and honey mindset. Milk and honey mindset. And we just have to learn to let it flow. Now, when we're talking about milk and honey mindset, of course, everyone knows the story. So I'm going to let Annette kind of introduce us to this entire discussion tonight.
Yes. Well, we're coming from the Bible in Exodus chapter 3, when God had spoke to Moses and told Moses, you know, my people are being depressed and things are going on with them. They've been afflicted, and there have been some problems going on. He said, but you know, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to take my people to a place flowing with milk and honey. And Moses began to tell God, what am I going to do? How am I going to tell Pharaoh? He said, you just tell Pharaoh what I said. Tell Pharaoh that I said what I said, and that's what I meant. So it took a minute. There was some plagues going on, and eventually the children of Israel, were able to start leaving, and they went into the wilderness. So it came to pass that as they were in the wilderness, they began to complain and murmur. And God had allowed manna to fall. Manna would fall in the morning. At the end of the day, it would be rotten and they couldn't eat it anymore. And they began to think about what was. They say, you know, back in that other place we came from, we had all kinds of stuff. We had melons and we had onion and we had this and we had that. And all we got is manna. And God began to be a little mad because God still provided what they needed to be provided. So manna was what they had. But they still even complained the more. They still wanted meat. They wanted this and they wanted that. So what ended up happening, Moses sent out 12 men to go and spy out the land. And 10 of them came back with a bad report, but 2 said, we got this. We can do this. And so God allowed them, because of their disobedience, they began to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. There was a trip that should have been taken 11 days, but it took 40 years. So we move on, we get to the book of Joshua, and we see that they went from manna, and now they're in the land flowing with milk and honey. And so we have to be like the children of Israel, the ones that made it in, that we're no longer eating manna, but we have milk and we have a honey mindset. And that takes us into what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay. Milk and honey mindset.
Milk and honey mindset. Now, I want to pause there for a second. Of course, when we started talking about this was about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. We got into this discussion. I can't remember what the topic was that night, but we got into this discussion because a lot of us are transitioning. When we find ourselves at a paradigm shift, what happens is the prototype for our lives has changed. The things that you used to do, they don't work anymore. The things that the way you used to operate, the way you used to flow in ministry, the way even sometimes on your job, certain things, they just don't work anymore. And a lot of people are transitioning where they want to leave what I call the slave of the paycheck and go into entrepreneurship. And I call it that because a lot of times when people don't do something that they've been given a vision to do, now mind you, there are some people who belong on their job. I'm not trying to tell you that you're supposed to quit your job, but there are some people who are born entrepreneurs, and there are some people who have visions and movements and all kinds of things. Hello, Ebony, I didn't see her come on. Have all kinds of things going on in your life. You have so much possibility. You have so much potential, but you don't operate in it. You don't walk into it because you don't have the right mindset. And when we started talking about milk and honey mindset, we were talking about moving out of that place from where you were into where God is trying to take you. And so many of us get stuck right there. And that's where we are tonight. We're going to talk about this mindset, and we're going to walk you through this discussion. It's so interesting because I can tell you when Annette and I have told you guys so many times, when we first started this journey, we were so afraid. You feel so out of place. You feel out of sync. You don't know if you're doing the right thing. But one thing that I've learned is that you have to be obedient. When you have the vision, when you know you have a destiny, you have a vision, you have a purpose, and you see the vision, God has shown you the vision, you know what you're supposed to do, you know what's at the end of that road, but for some reason, you can't sit back and envision what you see. So your vision doesn't become an imagination. You don't envision like a painter in front of a canvas. You don't take the time to say and absorb it. Out of fear, all kinds of things start to happen because you don't really, really feel comfortable. And it doesn't feel comfortable when you start something. But if you don't start it, if you never get started, you will never get started. You see the vision, but you have to step back and envision. That's the imagination. And we serve a God who's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that you can ask or imagine. But we don't exercise the faith, and we don't believe that we have enough. Oh, I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm not ready yet. I don't, we spend so much time getting ready that we don't get ready. You'll never get ready. You have to start. I don't know who I'm talking to, but you have to start. You've been contemplating and building and tiptoeing around this thing for so long that you've never gotten out of the gate. Ebony say, hey, me.
Yes,
if it's you, type in me. If this is you, type in me. Because I'm telling you, this was me a few months ago. And I'm like, really? Because, we get very comfortable. We get very comfortable, we get complacent, and we start making excuses as to why I can't do it. I don't have enough money. Everything that we've done has been without a dollar. And if I sat back and made those excuses, we would never have done half of what we've done.
That's so true.
Everything we've done. And there are other areas, because I believe in creating a revenue stream, a revenue wheel. I have many streams of revenue because I work for myself. But if I had never gotten started in each phase, I would never have done what I, set out to do, because I would have continued to make excuses as to why I can't do it. And some of you have all kinds of businesses, ministries, movements, nonprofit organizations, books, all kinds of things in your belly. So how long are you going to be pregnant with purpose?
Yes, that's right.
And, till you're overdue? Come on. So, because transition, and we've talked about that, because this is what this is. How many of you remember when we talked about transition being the toughest part of childbirth?
Oh, yeah.
When the doctor yells out, we're in transition,
yes.
You can't push, you're in this weird spot. And it is the toughest, the hardest part. I don't know, because I haven't been there, but some of y'all who on here who've been there 2 and 3 times, you understand that part, that area, that part of childbirth, what I'm told is the hardest part. And a lot of us are right there. where we've, somebody raised their hand. Hold on. Did you raise your hand, Marion?
Yeah, that was me saying that's me also.
Oh,
Oh.
you better use the commands. That's what I like.
Oh.
She raised her hand. She said, "That's me." Yeah, we put ourselves, we have ourselves in a position where we're afraid. We're afraid to step out. We're afraid to move. So I'm going to take us back to the presentation because I'm going to walk through a few of these points, and then we're going to open up and we're going to talk. I love Can We Talk. I love y'all. I love Can We Talk. Y'all love Can We Talk? I love Can We Talk.
I love it.
We have to let it flow. Now, the first thing is that you have to identify where you are, because this is where a lot of us are. We're right here. You're leaving your current state.
Yeah.
Whatever state you're in, remember we're talking about that shift. Whatever state you're in, it does not work anymore. Doesn't work. The prototype for your life has changed. When you find yourself in a shift, it's different. So just like the children of Israel, you've left. You've left whatever's had you tied up. You've left whatever has had you bound, whether it could be a number of things. It could be a job. It could be a relationship. It could be anything. It could be anything that you've been tied to that has had you almost like in prison. Because when you're out of the will of God, when you're outside of what you're supposed to do, you feel like you are in prison. So you're leaving that current state and you're moving towards destiny. You have a destination. So you're identifying where you are. And sometimes in this process, we end up in limbo. And why do we end up in limbo? What are some of the reasons we end up in limbo? You can type them in. What are some of the reasons in there? What are some of the reasons that may have had you in limbo for some of the things that you were setting out to do?
Well, one thing is fear.
Fear, yes.
One thing is finances.
Ebony said fear. Truth.
Finances.
Fear is a thief.
It's a thief. And then your mindset, you don't think you can do any better. It goes back, you've already talked yourself out of what your possibilities are.
A lot of times we talk ourselves out of it before we even get into it.
Yes.
We're talking ourselves out of it as we're walking into it. We're speaking defeat over it before we can even get to it.
Right.
So we end up in limbo. We end up stuck. We don't know where to go. We're not moving forwards. We're not moving backwards. We're just in limbo. And then sometimes we settle.
Oh my gosh.
And this is what started to happen.
Fear of failing.
Who was that said fear of failing? I couldn't see that.
From iPad.
Oh, that was from Marion. Fear of failing. You know what? And I'm going to tell you, a lot of times we do. Let me tell you, there's an analogy that I use. We talked about how when we first started moving forward in this thing, we were at the edge of the cliff. And when you jump off that cliff, sometimes you're going to roll and hit the ground. You might hit a rock. And you know how you see the cartoon characters with the little stars and circles around them?
Oh, yeah.
You might have a few of those moments, but then you have to rev it up and you have to keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's shifting gears. And there are some things that just may not work the way you think they were supposed to work. And honestly, Miriam, that's why we end up settling sometimes, because we hit those stumbling blocks. We hit those roadblocks, but we talked about one, I can't remember which, we've done so many discussions. We talked about one night about shifting gears. And when you're coming out of first gear, you have to ease up off of the clutch and you have to mash the gas lightly. So when you're shifting into first gear, it is the hardest gear. And if you shift too hard, or if you lift up off of the clutch too quick, the car's going to jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times, I used to hate driving a stick shift because I knew that I was going to end up going bibbity bump. Hello, Valerie. I was going to end up, doing that. I used to do that all the time. And even when I taught a friend of mine how to drive a stick shift, I warned her, when you come out of first gear, you're going to have the first time, you're going to be in traffic and you're going to come out of first gear And everybody behind was going to go, bah, 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 bah,
Yeah.
and it's going to be so embarrassing. And she told me, sure enough, when she first got out there, she first worked up the nerve. Okay, I'm going to drive my car. I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to be fine. And she said she was at a stoplight, and she was dreading it because she knew what was coming. And she got nervous, and she lifted her up off the gas, or she forgot in her car, of course, and there she was. And sometimes we get that way in our journey, and we stop, and we settle. We just settle. We become complacent because we've gotten tired. It's hard. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
It was easier back in Egypt. Remember that?
Yeah.
Sound familiar? It was easier. Life was simpler. And you know what? We do poor and beat down and pitiful real well.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'd rather stay there than to face the challenge of moving into something that's going to challenge us.
You're right.
So we settle.
And we have to face it, because once you face it, it's very liberating.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is so true. Sometimes it's not as bad as you thought. And sometimes, honestly, I mean, I'm used to getting out there. I've started so many different little things when it comes to business. And, some things worked and some things didn't. And I remember when I first started, I was doing, and this is so funny because Valerie's on here, and she had to help me straighten out my mess. When I first started, I was handling all of my clients in Excel. That did not work for me because it meant that I had to enter everything at the end of the day.
Oh, man.
And at the time, I was so busy that I couldn't get it all done. And I was in the middle of my life. We had just gotten my mom. Actually, we hadn't even gotten my mom yet. My life it got so busy that I couldn't keep up with it. So I had to have Valerie come in and enter all of my information into a program. And I knew I needed QuickBooks at that time, but I didn't want to do it. And then I had to come up with a system to where she would look at my calendar at the end of the day, and she would mark off who paid, who did what, how they paid. It was a code that we had. But I had to develop a system that worked, because what I tried in the beginning, it crashed and burned. And then there are times that I've had to shift it, and we had to do something different because things change. And that's what happens in our journey. When we start off, everything is not going to stay the way it is when you start off. And there's some things you'll try that just don't work.
Yeah, true.
It just don't work. So don't settle. Don't just get upset and say, you know what? This is not working. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to go on back and I'm going to chill. I'm going to get my little check, or I'm going to just stop. I'm just going to go ahead and and teach the Sunday school class. I'm not going to try to start my Bible study. I'm just going to teach the Sunday school class. Or I'm not going to start my nonprofit organization. I'm not going to write my book. I'm just going to keep writing my little poems in my journal. No, don't settle, because that's what was happening there. They had started to settle when there was so much more for them. There was so much more for them. They settle for it, and I like this little heading because y'all know, those of you who know me know that I'm about two French fries short of a Happy Meal sometimes. But when we were trying to find a title for this particular portion, I went back to Coming to America when they wanted meager accommodations. And that's what, a lot of us settle for. We settle for the meager accommodations. And even though it was available to them, it was provided, but it wasn't meant forever, because the trip was not supposed to take that long for the children of Israel. We all know the story. It was not supposed to take that long, but they settled for the meager accommodations. Mm-hmm. And as a result, they were dealing with something that was limited in conditions and in portions. They could only get it at a certain time, and they could only get, it was just enough to provide what they needed, and then they couldn't save it. So it just took care of right there. And sometimes we get comfortable right there in our little box, right in our little box and live limited. And we have limited beliefs. We have limited faith. But when you can pull down, remember we've been talking about that mindset. You've got to reprogram that mind.
You have to.
When your mind is limited, everything that you do is limited. Mm-hmm. Limited conditions and limited portions, limited beliefs. You got to move that limit off of everything about you. You got to take the lid off the jar. And there's so much more that's available. But that's what they did. And it was temporary. It was not for the long haul. It was a temporary situation. And so often we get caught up in the right now moment.
Yeah.
It gets comfortable. It gets cool. I was good. I was in my little building. I was doing artist development. I had too many clients. I really did. Because and one thing I learned, from this process, we're going to share that with you in a few other discussions, that I thought I had a business, but I owned a big old job.
Yeah.
And I owned a big job because I had to do everything, and it didn't function without me. And when you're dealing with something that doesn't function without you, it's not a business, it's a job. So I owned the job and I worked on the job. I had to develop everything in the job. So I did the job. I was the job.
Wow.
So I had to realize that when it got to that point that it was not working for me, I was working for it. I had to move out of that situation because it was a temporary thing. It got me through a season. I learned valuable lessons. Every move that I made, I've learned so many valuable lessons, but there was so much more that God wanted me to do because trust me, I've never been the one to want to brand me. I want to brand everybody else. I can stand behind the pulpit and I'll preach the average brother. I can lead worship, all that stuff I can do with my eyes closed. But to stand in front of people and to talk about their mindset and transforming their thought process and giving people something that they can chew on, even people who don't even know God. It is a tough place to be. And then writing a book, right? How about writing 2 books at the same time? You got an ebook and the regular book. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and there's a lot that you have to do. So I had to move out of the temporary state because where I was not meant for the long haul. And that's what the deal was with them, with the manna.
Yeah.
That's the manna mindset. Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know the difference. We look at temporary as permanent, and we can't get past the temporary because in our mind we've already made up our mind that it's permanent. Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking from experience, like I've been on the job for 35 years. Now I already know I'm going nowhere fast. Mm-hmm. But I still had that mindset that, well, at least I got a check, at least I can pay my bills, at least, and then it became permanent. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're not careful, you'll miss out mm-hmm. on what God is really trying to do because you're so busy trying to stay back there like the children. They kept thinking, well, back there I had this and back this, and I was the same way. So I can relate to this wholeheartedly. But,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is so true. And I don't know about you, but I had to come to the point, and I know that this is where you've been, and this is what you're talking about, is that you were determined that you didn't want to miss out.
Yeah.
You didn't want to miss out on what was to come.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time sitting in that spot, and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to miss this. Because how much, and you're not, and you're not too old, you're not too young. We've been talking about that.
Yeah, yeah.
When you've been given something, we talked about this, we were talking about the Colonel Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Colonel Sanders, actually, he was selling chicken on the side of the road during the Depression, during the Great Depression, because a lot of people didn't have money. They didn't have a means to get food or whatever. So people were, They were strapped. There were limited resources. So he started frying chicken and selling it on the side of the road. And then when he saved enough money, he bought a filling station from somebody, because during the Depression years, everything was dirt cheap. So he bought a filling station because it had a kitchen, and he was able to sell people gas, and he was able to fry chicken and sell it in there. And then it became a little cafe. And then a few years later, he was able to move into another building where he had an actual restaurant. And guess what? He still wasn't rich. Just because he had a restaurant, he was not rich. It was far from it. It wasn't, and at this time, mind you, when he actually stepped out and got the filling station, he was 40. And some of us think that when we're 40, it's already too late.
Yeah.
I've already missed it. Then it wasn't until he was 66 years old that he was one of the first people to buy into the whole franchise system. And they took his fried chicken recipe and made it a brand, and it became what we know today as KFC. He was 66 years old before he ever reached that millionaire status. That's when he became rich. 66, and we think it's over at 35. We think when we hit 40, 45, oh no, 50, oh, I'm over the hill now, it's done. And you're not. You're not too old, and you're not too young. God anointed David. He was outside getting dirty with the sheep. So you're not too young, you're not too old. You just need to move. When you get that unction, move. I'd already put this next point up that we talked about, that it wasn't even multifaceted. The manna was single faceted.
That was right. That was it. Yeah.
One purpose. It was a single faceted situation. Another thing is, they didn't work for it. It was a provided source. So it was something that you already were going to have anyway. So why settle when God says he wants you to live an abundant life? Life and life more abundantly. And it's not just about money. I mean, I want my thought process. I want to be, I like being told that I'm a little smart sometimes. And I know I'm a little strange. I know I'm a strange individual at times. Don't say anything, Brenda. I know that I'm a strange individual, and Brenda always tells me, you're she turned her camera off for that one. I see you, Valerie. I know I can be a bit strange, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with one more. You think there's something wrong with one more? In that? Do you think there's something wrong with wanting more? Does anybody think there's something wrong with wanting more out of life?
I think it's something wrong when you don't want more.
If you don't want more, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Because I don't think that, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. I want more out of life. And Brenda said no, and Ebony said not at all. There's nothing wrong with it. So did Mary. Thank you, darling. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. So we got to get out of Mega. And there were two things. The land flowing with milk. Wonderful thing about milk is that it's personal, wholesome, and nurturing. Now, for those of you who have had the wonderful privilege and pleasure of breastfeeding your children, I've heard so much and read so much about, breast milk being the healthiest thing for your baby. It's a personal thing. And then I don't know, well, I can say this, and my sister on here, but I remember my mama saying this about her and she put her headphone in and she wanted to hear what I got to say about her. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Carrie just tapped her out. I remember Mama saying Carrie tapped her out with breastfeeding. And I think that's why she was we always tease Carrie that she was Mama's favorite. Even though they would tell me that I was, because I'm the baby, no, really. Carrie was that one. And Mama always said, they always said that the baby becomes very close to you, that they have a bond with you when you breastfeed them. That's why, they want you to breastfeed the baby right out of the womb. So Carrie, tap Mama, she wanted to make sure that nobody else got that pleasure. And the funny thing is, Carrie was baby number 2. And Mama had 5 more children after that. So maybe that's why the closeness ended there. No, I'm just kidding. Mama treated everybody equal. So it's personal, wholesome, and nurturing. The other thing is, milk is referred to as a fluid of eternity. And when we think about a land that's flowing with something that's personal, wholesome, and nurturing, why would we not want that? Because that is what's laid up for all of you on here today. When you think about your purpose, this is something, your purpose is your legacy. And I know that, I know what's in, I know almost everybody I don't know everybody on here personally, but some people on here that I know what you have is so special that I believe that it's going to echo throughout eternity. And that's what's laid up. It's also a life source. And it symbolizes springtime and the newness. Now that's some good stuff. When we talk about milk, then when we go into the sweet honey, it's a specialized product. I studied the bees one time, and that goes all in. And that wouldn't get off of this for nothing.
It was so funny.
It's not a sermon. It's not a series. It's not a Bible study. It's Can We Talk? It's a discussion. We're just going to talk about it a little bit. I know you want to know because it was just bugging her, but that's the preacher in her. She would not let this
I know. Well, I thought we needed to break it down. See, Nita always talking about unpacking stuff, so I was trying to unpack it, okay? So we had only got 2 or 3 things out the suitcase, and we had more to go.
Well, you want to unpack it? You want to unpack the specialized product a little bit?
Yeah, okay. They pollinate. They play a
vital
the
bees now.
The bees, yeah. I'm gonna talk about the bees, and then I'm gonna talk about the honey. They pollinate, and they play a vital role in sustaining the ecosystem. Honey never spoils as long as you keep the airtight jar. So 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now,
wow,
it will not spoil.
That is something.
Produces. So that's what we have to be like. We have to reproduce after our own kind. When God bring you up, go back and grab somebody else. It's specialized in that area, and as long as God got you tight, you'll never spoil. You'll never be insignificant. You will always be able to move forward. Wow. So it's a specialized product, and I love the fact that it never. Any other food will spoil, but as long as you keep a tight lid on it, you'll never spoil. As long as you got coverage, you'll never spoil.
I've had honey for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I have this one jar of honey that somebody bought me from New Zealand, and it had the honeycomb in it, and it was supposed to be this certain class of bees, and it wasn't Manuka. It was a different type of honey. And the honey is very, very good. And I still have a little bit of that today.
Yeah.
It's still good.
And back in biblical times, they used it as a sweetener. And even now people do.
Yeah.
As a sweetener.
It was an honored gift.
Yeah. It represents nourishment, reward, sweetness. Also, it's symbolic of gold. That is what we will receive. If we work hard, we will achieve our goals. So it's an honored gift. It's something that's been given that won't spoil, that'll always be there. And that's how we are. We're honored. We're a gift. Of course, I'm going to throw this plug in here. I have a ministry called Gifts, Girls Inspired for Total Success. So you're a gift. So if you're
What is
and
girl? Break that down a little bit. Girls Inspired for Total Success.
oh yeah, my ministry is called Girls Inspired for Total Success. Inside of every woman is a little girl. You do know we have little girl issues, right? And
Yes.
inside every little girl, a woman will emerge. And it speaks to areas in your life where you struggle. You may have had something happen as a child that you never overcame. Somebody may have said something to you. I know growing up, and the reason why this was birthed with me, because I was pregnant at 14, married at 15. I never went to a prom. I never, did those things. And for years it haunted me because I know I could remember. I could remember going to the year to the year I was supposed to graduate. I got my GED the year before. And I could remember sitting there watching all people I went to school with from kindergarten to 11th, 12th grade. I saw them walk across the stage, and for years it haunted me that I didn't do that. So it may not seem like a lot, but there are things that we struggle with, and we carry it. And so GIFT was birthed out of that to help women and girls overcome some of the things that may torment you. It may not mean, to somebody else, it may seem silly, but for you, it could be detrimental. Something just that simple that I had overcome, and then being married at 15 and, going through that. I mean, I'm almost 60, so going through the embarrassment of being pregnant, yeah. So those are the things that I went through. So when I saw an honored gift, that's what you are. You are a gift.
That's your honey, isn't it?
Yeah. Never let nobody tell you nothing. You're right. Never let nobody tell you nothing. And one of the things, and we're gonna move on this. I always tell women, just make sure when they open your box, there's something beautiful on the inside.
Wow.
So I try to work on the inside. You can make the outside pretty. You can use the best makeup, and you can go and get yourself all dolled up. But if they open the box and there's nothing beautiful inside, then you still got some work to do. So
Wow.
that's it's an honored gift, and that's what that represents.
Amazing. That was good stuff. It was a source of survival. That's the other thing about honey.
Yeah.
And it was also, and this one was, of course, we know about this. It promotes good health and healing.
Yeah.
So there's some sweet things that are on the inside of you. There's some sweet things that need to develop. You got to get to your honey. You got to get to your milk. You got to get to your nourishment, because that's what other stuff is. It's a sign of luxury and abundance.
Yes.
And I just believe that when we actually start walking in our purpose, let me tell you, call me crazy, but I'm crazy enough to just believe God that everything that I see, I'm going to have.
Yes. That's right.
Because I've never been more sure about anything in my life. And I've seen God work in 2018. We're getting close to the end of the year. We're actually almost there. We're a few weeks away from turning the corner out of 2018. 2018, I can't even remember. It went by so fast, and I think back, I'm like, oh my goodness. I did not even realize how fast that year went by until we came up on the anniversary of my mother's death, and I'm like, my goodness. And that was a few weeks ago, and I'm like, it has already been a year. That is how fast time moves, and it doesn't wait for you. So you have to keep moving, and you have to move in obedience, because the reason that they wandered was because of fear, disobedience, all of that. They just didn't do what they were supposed to do. And a whole generation had to die before they could even go in, and nobody over the age of 20 was allowed in. So I'm just so thankful for God's grace that at 50, I can still get mine. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful, and I look at this lesson, because if you don't do what you're supposed to do, if you don't do what you're set out to do, somebody else will do it. Will do it. You'll look up and it's done. And I'm going to give you one little example before I go to the last piece. I have a friend who came to me years ago, and she said, I have an invention idea, but you can't tell anybody. You want to hear it? Because if you tell somebody, the next thing you know, somebody's going to do a prototype and it's going to be done. And I said, I stopped her right there. I said, well, you do realize if you don't do it, it's going to get done anyway. So tell me. So when she told me, she said, it's called the umbrella. You know how when when it's raining outside and when you get ready to take your umbrella down, you still get wet. Everything gets wet in the car. You have to take all that rain inside with you. The floor gets wet. But if we had some way that the umbrella could go up and the water could drain down, and she said, and I was thinking her mindset was different from the way they actually did the umbrella. They call it, I forgot what they call it now, but somebody did it. Somebody did exactly what she talked about. And she told me this idea about 10 years ago. And it's done. That's what will happen. You have to get moving. You've been given a vision. You've been given a purpose. You've been given insight. You've been given a book. Whatever you've been given, you better move on it, because guess what? It's going to get done. But I want all of my stuff. I want my milk and I want my honey. So I have to change my mindset. And in changing the mindset, it's a choice of faith. Faith is a choice. You have to choose. I choose faith. I choose it. And do you have the capacity to believe? Do you really believe it? When you see it, you envision it. When you envision it, you imagine it. And then you accept it. And then remember, once you accept it, you have to get moving. But you have to grab hold of what you see first. So it's a choice of faith, the capacity to believe, and then you have to stand up for your rights, because what was there belonged to them.
Yeah.
It was promised. What you see belongs to you. It's yours. You better deal with those dream killers and haters, and keep moving and stand up for your rights. It's yours. Type it in. It's mine. It belongs to me. Type it in if you got your free hands. I don't have free hands because I got mine up. I'm talking, and I got too many things going on. But type it in. It belongs to me. It's mine. It's mine. I'm gonna stand up for mine. I want mine. You have to break down those fear barriers. I don't know how I got the little green mark right there. But you have to break down the fear barriers. A lot of times we operate so much in right here. And I told you, fear is a thief.
It is. Woo.
Fear is a thief. It will rob you of everything.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let that lie get me.
Mm-mm.
And then you have to walk boldly into your destined position. You don't need to be standing on this side when everything is for you is on the other side. We've talked a lot about narrowing the straight, about navigating our way and moving forward towards our destiny. But if you don't walk in it, remember, just because you come out of first gear don't mean you can't go into second, or don't mean you can't start over. Crank the car back up, put that car in first gear, ease up off the clutch and go. You're gonna go. You're gonna move past that hiccup. It's just a groove. Walk boldly into it. You deserve it. It's yours. And our favorite, we got to show up, engage, and win. It doesn't make sense to have it if you're not going to show up.
Yes.
And when you show up, you have to do something. You have to work. You engage. And if you show up and engage, guess what? You're going to win.
Yes.
Boom, yeah.
Yes. And just know that God is still in the blessing business, because he took a cow and he took a bee and he changed the nation. So God took
I feel like you wanted to tune that up.
Walk on the land and eat grass, and he took a bee to fly and he changed the nation. So if he can do that with a cow and a bee, truly he can change your outlook, your mindset. And you can also walk into your milk and honey.
And then I kind of feel like you wanted to tune up right there.
You know I did. I want to say, and he took some grain.
All right. I'm going to open all of the mics up, but I want to open up, actually you can unmute yourself, but we want to get some conversation going. I see you, Ebony. Come on, girl.
You know, I enjoy tonight as every night. You know, you always talking to me. You always talking to me. You always got, every time you talking, it's like that finger in my face, like I'm talking to you. But I'm just taking it in. I don't really have a lot to say tonight. I'm just soaking everything in and just ready to take action. It's been a lot of things that I've been trying to do, and I've just been like so fearful, and that's my issue. You know, fear is, you know, why I'm in limbo, and I'm working on getting out of that. So there are actually some other things that I'm starting to get into or whatever to break out of that. So I'm getting out of my comfort zone, and I'm just gonna do it. And I just, take it for what it is.
Ebony, one thing I want to say, you have been with us from day one, and there's been so much growth from your day one position. So much growth. And I'm very, very proud of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very proud.
Thank you.
She being quiet. I'm going to unmute her mic because I really want her to say something. She unmuted herself. Glenda?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, I said, it's so funny because I said, I don't have to raise my hand because I'm going to be voluntold.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, this is such a timely message. And let me, this is so funny. And you see, you're going to be regret this because when I get started.
I know.
But a couple of things, and then we can all attest to fear. But one of the things I want to say, last year about this time, I had a dream about creating something, a product. I just wanted to create something. Was something I thought about a long time ago, and I wanted to make it something simple. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. It was just something really simple, and I said, man, I need to do this. Like I just said, I'm gonna wait till I get some money. I'm gonna wait till I do this, and I said, but man, I really need to do this. And then turn of events and life happened, and I know it was in 2017, like the latter part of 2017, latter part of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so about 8 or 9 months later, I walk in Walmart and I see it. And it's exactly the way I envisioned. It's exactly the way I drew it out. Tell me I wasn't mad.
Wow.
Tell me I wasn't mad.
I know you were.
And it's simple. It's a pad for your curling iron that you can lay out on your counter so you don't burn your counters, but you can also wrap it to travel and put the way, the way God showed it to me. But because of circumstances and situations, wow. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hot mad about that. And so watch this. And so what I heard consistently is about fear. I think everybody has a fear of doing something. And so here's a revelation that God gave me about fear going to work this morning, even in my own life, because that's like probably one of the biggest things that has paralyzed me in so many levels. And so now watch this, fear, when we talk about fear, so I've been going through and working on this teaching about when to know when it's God, the devil, or circumstances. Right?
Uh-huh.
And then how we blame everything on the devil.
It's
just the devil. The devil kept me from doing this, and then not only that, we think that everything the devil does, God allowed, because that's scripture with Job. So because of Job and the conversation that the devil had with Job, we think that everything that happens, God allowed it, or the devil did. And what I've learned is that there's some things that has nothing to do with the devil, but it's how we respond. And we generally respond. It's fear that we have. It's not the devil, it's fear.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Holy Spirit said to me, fear, when fear comes, we stand on the word of God, and we, talk about how perfect love casts out fear. But one of the things that God is teaching me how to manage my emotions.
Yes.
Now, You say, okay, what does this have to do with any of that? If I can manage my emotions and conquer what I'm going through in my emotions, I will not waste time and opportunities.
Mm-mm-mm.
Because the time I spend thinking about stuff, praying about stuff, you know, trying to figure out, can I do it? Should I do it? Well, do I need to pray? By the time, then again, that fear and all, by the time I've wasted so much time.
Mm-hmm.
All because I was too afraid that so I've come to the conclusion it's better to do something and it not be the will of God than to not do anything at all.
You better say that.
Because sometimes we got to do something to fail at it, to know that it wasn't the will of God.
Mm-hmm.
But I've wasted so much time in my life, fear and just, and then, and I'm looking at how it has just I've wasted so much time.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had acted right then and there, I'd be rich right now, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to y'all. Just kidding. Trying to win.
Right. But I feel you. But you're right, though.
Oh no, I could afford for us to have this. We could be in a hotel somewhere, a conference, or so, I don't know, but
on the network television.
So number one, so the word of the Lord is saying to me is constantly managing my emotions to keep from wasting more time. So I was doing some math. So this is funny. I was doing some math. So I said, let's say hypothetically you have 30 more years to live. For me, if I'm 30, okay, I probably won't live 30 more years. But let's say, I'll be what, 30? Okay, 80 something. Yikes. So 30 years, that'll give me my math be totally off, but I think you'll get the point. 30 years would probably end up being 360 months. No, that's not right. But anyway, but let's just say if it were, how many months that would be if I lived 30 years.
Mathematicians.
Well, let's just hypothetically say 360 months. And then 360 months would be like 1,440 weeks. 1,440 weeks would be 10,080 days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you think about $10,000 in the bank, and I heard this on a book I'm reading that inspired this thought. But so I just wanted to share. But when you think about how fast can you spend $10,000?
Overnight.
Yeah, most of us, that's like in terms of our lifestyle, we probably live about a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, or could be easily $10,000. And so here's the point. So if I'm saying I only have 10,000 more days left of my life, do you know how fast that's going by?
Mm-hmm.
I cannot afford to waste time. So whatever's hindering me, whatever's kept me locked up, bound up, tied up, it's got to go. And it's got to go now. Like, I can't wake up another day in distress. I can't wake up another day in fear. I can't wake up another day wondering what people are going to think, what people are going to say. I can't wake up another day. Every day I wake up now, I have got to wake up with divine purpose in mind. And so now, when I think about this, I'm counting the minutes. So every minute of my life I have to count. If I'm watching TV, I better be doggone watching something good, because it needs to count. I
That is so true.
Doing anything.
So
I'm excited about what God's doing. I'm excited about, and then on top of that, so let me just, let me go on and prophesy then.
Hey.
If you want me to, I don't have to.
That's
but
what you
since
do.
you asked, listen. So watch this. I know it can't take me nowhere. And so then when I was listening to this book, listening to this math about how many days I got. Watch this. Then I thought about how God gave me a prophetic word last week that He wants me for 2019. He says, I'm getting ready to accelerate time.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm getting ready to accelerate the acceleration. What?
Mm.
What? Now, watch this. What does that mean? So in the natural, how do I multiply my time? How can I multiply my time in the natural? In the natural, I would multiply my time is if I got up every day, there's 24 hours in a day. And let's say from 8, if I woke up at 7 in the morning, went to bed at 11 at night, those hours, how I would multiply time is by the number of things I could accomplish in that allotted time. Mm. So let's say you slept all day, you ate, and then you did this and did that. But let's say I woke up now, I'm going to be double productive. I'm going to be triple productive. So like, let's say times past, I used to get 10 things done, but now I want to try to get 20 things done. That's how you multiply things in the natural. Mm-hmm. And now watch this. Now watch this revelation. So how is God going to accelerate the acceleration? He said, because what I'm going to do, everything you missed the last time, I'm going to double up. I'm going to double up what you missed and what you got right now and what you're going to get. Oh, God. I'm sorry. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry.
You can't help it.
I'm sorry. Unmute me, please. I mean, mute me. Put me back on
mute. No, I'm not going to mute you.
Put me back on mute.
No.
Please.
No, but that's good stuff, though. That's good.
The Holy Ghost kept saying, I'm getting ready to accelerate the acceleration. Because, the last year or so, we've been talking about the suddenly blessing. And we've been talking about, acceleration. And when the Holy Spirit said that, I said, how are you going to accelerate the acceleration? It means that, when I used to be able to do 10 things, I can do 20 things. Now I'm going to be able to do 30 things in the same allotted amount of time. So in those same 10,080 days that I have left, I'm going to allow you to do double and get double. Oh my God, what you lost, what you're in, and what you're about to walk in.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that, you feel it?
I feel you. Girl. Yeah.
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Somebody, I don't know.
It belongs.
Breakthrough. There's some stuff. So listen, just with that, when you start thinking about how much some fear should have dropped off of you, I'm ready for the milk and honey.
Me too.
I'm ready for mine.
And I'm going to get doggone drunk with it. I
know that's right. I know that's
swim
right.
in it. I'm a bathe
that
in
stroke, it. I want to get my pillow.
All right, mute me.
Wow. I'm not muting you. Somebody else got something to say? No, you stay open. Somebody else might have something. Where's Sharon? Sharon ain't saying nothing. Sharon quiet. Valerie quiet.
Listen, Sharon probably going in.
Oh yeah, Sharon probably is going in.
Come on now. Don't take somebody say, G, she on the floor.
Yeah.
They ain't got to say us, just G. So
Brenda Jackson.
See, she's saying that is.
I'm here. I was having so many technical problems, but I came in on time for what I needed to hear. So preach, Miss Glenda, as always. But yes, I am ready, like I said last week. And that acceleration, yeah, I totally received that. Totally received that. Because with what God is doing in my life right now, I mean, second book is finished and I'm working on the third one now. So yeah, I'm just up for it all, no matter what, no matter who. It's time. Not just time, it's my time. That's how that works for me right now. It's my time. At 60, it's my time.
Praise God.
So yeah.
Praise God.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I so appreciate you talking about giving that story about Colonel Sanders and that age thing, because I'm crawling up on 60 but God is extending us our lives, and we getting ready to do our best work.
Exactly. And the thing is, when you think about how much history and how much experience, how many situations you have overcome, how much testimony There's so much that you have that is behind you, pushing you to that new place, that when you get there, it's like, okay, you know what? And I can leave that stuff now. I can stand up right. I don't have anything holding me. I've peeled back all of those layers. I've laid aside all of that weight. I've gotten rid of all of the things, that stuff that ties around my ankles and won't let me move, because that's bondage. That's the bondage that they were in. They were in bondage. They were held captive. They were not free. They had to do things according to that situation. And when you get out of that mindset and you start walking in, I mean, this is definitely what you were destined to do right now. Every day from the beginning of your life, from the time your mother laid down and gave birth to you to now, was designed for where you're getting ready to go. And there's so much, and I know, there's so much that rests on you, Glenda, that you have to be in that. And the acceleration upon the acceleration that is about to come into your life is so seasonal and so right now that you really don't have another day to waste. Every minute, every second of your day counts. Every minute matters. Every minute matters. That's that, when you have milk and honey mindset, I mean, I want all my milk and all my honey, and I want to mix it up together. I want to drink it. I want to put it on my skin. I mean, when you think about all of the different uses there was for honey and how nourishing and life-giving milk is, even when you get to that place where you're headed, that's another new beginning, Glenda. There's so much more even past that. You got to get to that first thing, that first light that you see. Because then there's so much more even past that. So much more.
Absolutely.
Brenda's on her second book. Well, just released her second book. All right now.
And I should have written one. If one more person prophesied to me about writing a book or see a book.
Well, I thank God that I finally gotten that I've finally crossed that bridge. Thank God. I mean, I'm finished, but I'm almost done. And it is, let me tell you, it is a task and it is hard, but actually myself, Brenda, and Annette all did our book with the same person. And she's a great writing coach and can help
y'all hook me up.
Process. I will definitely do that. We had a meeting with her last Friday because she's doing 2 ebooks.
Yeah, 2, yeah.
2 ebooks for us that, and it's those are the things that you need for where you're going. I mean, I remember I talked to Brenda about my book long before she wrote her first book. And how long ago was your first book, Brenda?
2009.
Wow. That's 10 years.
Almost. Wow.
And now your second book was released, and I'm just starting on that first one. That's something. And I've talked to her about my book long before she even thought about her first one. But you know what? I'm so glad that he's a restorer. I'm so glad that he restores everything, even but the cankerworm. And, thank you for that, Glenda. Because let me tell you, that's sometimes we think that we've completely missed everything, but we haven't. But God will show you, just like he showed you with that product in Walmart, that when you don't do something, it will get done. You have to
will get done.
Do it.
While you thinking about it, somebody else has already
exactly
done, created it.
And we'll sing it all the time. While you're trying to figure it out, God's already worked it out, but we don't believe it.
Yeah.
We just don't. Man. Well, I want to thank everybody. I'm going to, I'm going to actually stop the recording. I'm glad we got all of that because I am surely, listeners, y'all going to be in for a treat. Y'all in for a treat. I know by now you know that the treat was good tonight. It was good tonight. I'm going to stop the recording right now.